I was just heating up leftovers when my phone buzzed. Room 418. Don't keep me waiting, winky face. From my mom's number. The worst part? Dad was still at work. This wasn't the first message. Hey there. We're working hard to hit our first 1,000 subscribers. If you love true, emotional stories, hit that subscribe button. It helps more than you know. Now let's get into the story. I was halfway through microwaving leftover lasagna when my phone buzzed with a message that made my stomach twist. Room 418. Don't keep me waiting, winky face. Just that. Nothing else. I stared at it for a second, still chewing, completely confused. Thought it was maybe spam. Or one of those creepy wrong number texts you get and instantly delete. But then I saw who it was from. My mom. Her name. Her number. Her contact photo. Right there. My thumb froze mid-scroll. Like if I tapped too fast the universe would collapse in on itself. I remember blinking at the screen for a long time, trying to make it make sense. Like maybe she was joking. Maybe this was meant for my dad. Maybe they were doing some weird role-play thing that I desperately didn't want to think about. My brain threw every possible excuse at me, trying to protect me from the obvious. But the thing is, my dad was still at work. Not just he said he was at work. I knew for a fact he was. He works late on Thursdays, and I'd just seen his car still parked at the office when I passed it coming home. There was no way he was in some hotel room, waiting for that message. That message wasn't meant for him. And here's the worst part. The part that made everything else unravel. This wasn't the first message, just the first one she sent to the wrong son. It's weird what your brain starts doing when you get hit with something like that. You replay things you thought were meaningless. Moments that felt weird but didn't make sense at the time. Like how she always took self-care weekends every couple of months. We just thought it was mom being mom, going to a spa, visiting old college friends. And how she got cagey with her phone after 9 p.m. Or the time she came back from a trip and casually mentioned someone named Ray when she thought I wasn't listening. Ray wasn't one of her friends, at least not any we knew. But I never thought anything of it. Because who the hell suspects their mom of cheating? That's something you see in TV shows. You don't live it. And yet there I was, standing in the kitchen, lasagna turning cold on the counter, holding a message from my mom that felt like it belonged to someone else's life. Not mine. I didn't respond. I couldn't. I just stared at the message like it might delete itself if I waited long enough. My heart was pounding, and not in a dramatic way. I literally felt sick. Like I'd just seen something I wasn't supposed to. Then another message came in. Ugh, you better not be bailing on me again. Last time was embarrassing. That one punched me harder. Because it meant this wasn't new. This wasn't a one-time thing. She was talking to someone she had history with. Someone she'd seen before. Someone who had stood her up once. That meant this was ongoing. That meant it was real. I felt this pressure building in my chest, like I wanted to scream, but had nowhere to put the sound. I walked to the living room in this fog, sat down on the couch, and just stared at nothing. I didn't know what I was supposed to do. Do I tell my dad? Do I confront her? Do I pretend I didn't see anything? Instead, I opened the messages again and looked closer. There were no previous texts from her to me that looked suspicious, so she must have deleted her history. But I did something I never thought I'd do. I opened our family's phone plan portal. My dad pays for all our phones, and for whatever reason, we still have shared access. I remembered the password. And that's when things got darker. There were hundreds of texts to the same number. Late nights, weekends, random bursts in the middle of the day. None of them saved under a name, just the number. And that number didn't belong to anyone in our family, not even a coworker. There were phone calls, too, long ones, some over an hour. And it wasn't always one-sided. The number had called her back dozens of times. I looked it up on a reverse search. What I found made me feel like the floor under me collapsed. The number was registered to Raymond Pierce, Uncle Ray, my dad's oldest friend. Ray was basically family. He was the guy who came to every barbecue, every Thanksgiving. I've seen that man in our kitchen more than I've seen some of my cousins. He helped my dad build the back porch. He gave me $200 for my graduation and called me champ every time he saw me. My sister used to joke he was like a second dad. Now I was wondering if he always wanted to be the first one. I slammed my laptop shut and just sat there, trying not to lose it. Because I realized something else. My mom hadn't just accidentally texted her son. She'd done this before. She'd messaged someone the wrong thing. She just never got caught. This time she did. So I did the only thing I could think of. I got in my car, and I drove to the hotel. Room 418. Not to confront her. Not yet. Not even to say anything. I just had to see it. I needed to know it was real. I needed proof. Because after that message, nothing felt real anymore. I didn't know what I expected to see when I pulled up to that hotel. Maybe I was hoping for a parking lot with no cars, like it was all some ridiculous misunderstanding. Or maybe I wanted to walk into the lobby, ask for room 418, and have the clerk look at me like I was crazy. But no, room 418 was booked, and it was under the name Raymond Pierce. I didn't ask for a key or anything like that. I'm not bold or stupid enough to fake being him. I just thanked the clerk, walked away like I belonged there, then rode the elevator to the 4th floor, heart pounding like it wanted out of my chest. That hallway felt longer than it should have. Quiet, beige walls, dim lights, that faint hotel soap smell in the air. I remember hearing my own footsteps and thinking this is the last normal moment before everything breaks. Because I wasn't just looking to confirm what I already feared. I was hoping, really, deep down hoping, that I was wrong. That I'd gotten something twisted. That maybe Ray was meeting someone else. That it wasn't my mom behind that door. That it wasn't her who'd sent those messages. But that hope died the second the door opened. I didn't knock. I stood around the corner, just far enough to not be in direct sight, and waited. I wanted to see who came and went. But then, like the universe hated me personally, I heard the click of the door opening. And I froze. Because there he was. Ray. Uncle freaking Ray. Wearing nothing but a hotel bathrobe, chest hair peeking out, holding a drink in one hand and smiling. And then I heard it. My mother's voice from inside the room. Laughing. Not just laughing. That soft, low, flirty laugh she used when she was feeling smug or powerful or like she had a secret. The same laugh she used to use with my dad back when things were good. I ducked into the hallway alcove, far enough not to be seen. And I just listened. Frozen. Shaking. Ray said, "Thought I heard something," and took a few steps into the hall. For a second, I thought I was busted. But he looked the other way, then went back inside and shut the door. And then it hit me. He had no guilt. None. He didn't look nervous. He wasn't sneaking around like someone who knew he was stealing from his best friend. He was comfortable. That was the moment I realized this wasn't an affair in its early stages. This wasn't something wild and risky and passionate and doomed. This was routine. This was normal to them. They'd been doing this for a long time. I didn't confront him. Or her. I just left. I walked out of the hotel, got in my car, and sat there for maybe 20 minutes staring at the dashboard, trying to process what I'd seen. Then I drove home. Not because I had a plan, but because I felt like if I stayed 1 second longer, I'd do something I couldn't undo. Back at the house, everything looked exactly the same. Same porch lights. Same scent of laundry detergent and dog food and cinnamon candles. My mom's book was still on the coffee table. My dad's shoes still by the door. Like nothing had happened. Like everything hadn't just fallen apart in a hotel room less than 6 miles away. That night, I did something I never thought I'd do. I went back into the phone records. And this time, I dug deeper. Not just Ray's number. I looked at everything. And I found something. There were late-night texts that didn't match Ray's number. A second number, also unsaved, also active for months. Shorter conversations, but still frequent. That sent a new wave of confusion through me. Was there another guy? Was Ray not the only one? But no. After a few minutes, I realized what it was. That second number belonged to her friend Karen. The one who always called my dad too square and said he was too vanilla for a woman like your mom. I always thought she was just drunk and weird. Now I think she knew. She was covering for her. My mom had help. She had people making excuses, alibis. People giving her cover stories. Which means she wasn't just cheating. She was strategic about it. She planned this. I sat there that night, lights off, phone in hand, scrolling through timestamp after timestamp, looking at call durations, imagining what she was saying, how she was lying to my dad, how many times she said she loved him right after being with someone else. And then I thought about something else, something worse. My sister. She's 17, still in high school, and she thinks our mom is perfect. She still believes in that my parents are soulmates, fairy tale we all kind of believed at her age. And suddenly, I started remembering something my mom once said offhand, years ago, after too much wine. She was our honeymoon surprise. Except she wasn't. Because the math didn't line up. I did the numbers in my head. My parents got married in April. My sister was born the same year, in October. That's 6 months. which would have been fine if my dad hadn't been stationed overseas until May. So now my head was spinning with another question. One I didn't want to ask, but couldn't ignore anymore. Is my sister even my dad's daughter? And if she's not, does he know? I sat there, staring at old family photos, feeling like I didn't recognize any of the people in them anymore. Not my mom, not my sister, not even myself. Because when the foundation of your family cracks, everything you thought was solid starts to feel fake. And I wasn't even close to done learning just how fake it all really was. There's a moment where anger shifts into obsession. It's not sudden, not like flipping a switch. It's slower, like water turning into steam, 1 degree at a time. And that's where I was, sitting on a couch, in a house full of framed lies, with a head full of questions that kept boiling over. I couldn't sleep. My body was exhausted, but my brain had different plans. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw my mom's texts. I saw Ray in that stupid robe. I saw my dad's face. My sister's laugh. Everything felt contaminated. But one question started pushing everything else out of the way. Who is my sister's real dad? Not because I thought it changed how I saw her. I love her. She's my sister. But I needed to know just how deep this lie went. Because if my mom could keep this big a secret for that long, what else wasn't real? So I started digging. Let me tell you something about military families. We keep documents, deployment orders, medical forms, discharge papers, wedding licenses. Everything gets saved in some box or binder because you never know when Uncle Sam's going to ask for proof you exist. Our house had a small fireproof safe in the closet of the office. I'd seen it a million times and never cared what was in it. But that night, I waited until my mom was asleep and my sister had her headphones on, and I opened it. It wasn't even locked. Inside were all the usual things: tax returns, passports, mortgage paperwork, and in the back, a manila envelope labeled "Important," family docs. Inside that, my sister's birth certificate. And right there, in black and white, October 6th, born 6 months after their wedding. But what stood out to me wasn't just the date. It was the name listed for the attending physician. I Googled it because I'm nosy now. The doctor? Not at the base hospital. She was born at a civilian clinic, nowhere near the military base my dad was stationed at. Now here's where it gets colder. I found an old copy of my dad's deployment orders tucked behind a stack of insurance forms. They were dated May 3rd of that year. He wasn't even back in the country until December. You don't have to be a math genius to see the problem. There is no universe where my dad is her biological father. And suddenly, that one wine-drunk comment from my mom, she was our honeymoon surprise, turned into something darker. Not a surprise, a cover-up. I wish I could say I didn't spiral after that, but I did. I kept replaying every memory I had of my mom and Ray. Things I never thought twice about now hit different. The way she'd light up when he came over, even when Dad was right there. How she laughed too hard at his jokes. The way she always made extra food when she knew he'd be around. I remembered a barbecue when I was maybe 14. Dad had to leave early for a base meeting, and Ray stayed behind to help clean up. I remember going inside to grab a soda and catching them in the kitchen, standing way too close. She was laughing. He had his hand on the counter next to hers. I brushed it off. Thought maybe they were just being friendly. But now it felt like I'd walked in on something I wasn't supposed to see, and I was too young to know it. How long had they been lying to us? Was it just after my sister was born? Or before? Was I even my dad's? I didn't want to think about that yet. One mental collapse at a time. The next morning, I looked at my sister differently. Not in a bad way. In a protective way. She had no idea. She was still just a kid caught in a mess she didn't ask to be born into. And that's when I made a decision I wasn't sure I had the right to make. I ordered 2 DNA kits. One for her, and one for me. I didn't plan some big dramatic reveal. I didn't sit her down and say, "Hey, want to help me blow up our childhood?" I just told her we were doing a sibling DNA test as a joke. Said I saw some TikTok about how siblings are never actually 50-50 matches, and it messed with my head. She was skeptical, but she agreed. I think she just wanted to hang out. We spat in tubes, sealed them up, and mailed them off like we were sending off letters to the future. In a way, we were. And while we waited, I kept watching my mom. She had no idea. She still smiled like she was queen of the world. Still texted on her phone with that same little smirk. Still made breakfast like we were a happy, clueless family. Meanwhile, I was quietly stacking receipts. Building a case. Not for revenge. Not yet. But for truth. Because once you see behind the curtain, You can't unsee it. And something told me, deep in my gut, that this story had more pages I hadn't turned yet. The DNA results came in on a Thursday. I remember that because I was sitting in the parking lot outside my job, already 30 minutes late for my shift, just staring at the email subject line on my phone. Your results are ready. I didn't even hesitate. I tapped it open right there in the driver's seat, heart hammering in my throat. I'd been telling myself all week that I was overreacting, that the dates were just weird coincidences, that maybe, somehow, science would show that yes, my dad was still my sister's biological father, that everything else was just in my head. But then the screen loaded, and I knew. The report was blunt. We were half-siblings. We shared one biological parent. That's it. Which meant everything I'd suspected was true. My dad is not her father. And worse, he never knew. He had no idea he'd raised a child who wasn't his. Loved her, protected her, worked 2 jobs to get her into dance camps and pay for her braces. He was there for every scraped knee, every science fair, every late-night meltdown. He'd always called her his baby girl, and it had been a lie the whole time. But not his lie. Hers. My mom's. I didn't go to work that day. I drove home, numb. The kind of numb that doesn't even feel like sadness or anger. It just feels like your body is filled with cold static. Like you're watching your life through a pane of glass. She was in the kitchen when I walked in, on the phone with someone, laughing about a movie she'd just watched. She turned and gave me that casual, mom smile. And I looked at her like I'd never seen her before in my life. I said, "Can we talk?" She covered the phone, gave me the universal 1 SEC finger, then said goodbye to whoever she was chatting with. Then she asked, "What's up, sweetheart?" Sweetheart. Like she hadn't shattered our family into 1,000 pieces. Like she wasn't actively living a double life while playing the role of devoted wife and mother. I held up the printed DNA report. I didn't say anything. I just handed it to her and watched the color drain from her face. She didn't read the whole thing, just the top line. Then she looked at me like she was deciding how honest to be. And what she said next. It wasn't an apology. It wasn't regret. It was strategy. She said, "Your father doesn't need to know everything." Like it was just some inconvenient detail we could hide under the rug for another 20 years. I asked her if Ray was my sister's father. She hesitated. Then she nodded. Just once. I stood there, waiting, for what, I don't know. Maybe for her to show some kind of guilt. Maybe for her to explain, to say she was scared, that she made a mistake, that she didn't mean for this to happen. But instead, she crossed her arms and said, "He never questioned it. Why are you?" Like I was the problem. Like digging up the truth made me the traitor. I said, "So you were just going to let Dad die not knowing?" And she said, "He's not the kind of man who needs to know things that would hurt him." That's when I realized something that should have been obvious all along. She doesn't feel guilty. She doesn't even feel wrong. She genuinely believes she did the right thing, by lying, by covering it up, by letting my dad raise a child that wasn't his and never telling him. And maybe worst of all, she looked at me like I owed her something. Like I should protect her now that I knew. Like I should become part of her secret. I didn't yell. I didn't threaten. I didn't say anything else. I walked out, went straight to my car, and backed up the voice memo app on my phone. Because I'd been recording. Not because I planned to, but because a few days earlier, I'd started keeping recordings just in case things got weird. I'd been living in a spy novel for weeks, and I wanted insurance. Now I had it. I had her admitting everything, and I knew exactly what to do next. But first, I had to talk to my sister. That was the part that made me want to throw up. Because she still lived in a bubble. She didn't know any of this. And no matter how gently I told her, this was going to destroy her. Still, she deserved the truth. Even if it broke her heart. Even if it changed the way she saw our mom forever. She had a right to know. Telling my sister was one of the hardest things I've ever done. Not because I thought she'd hate me, or scream, or deny it. But because deep down, I knew the look she'd give me afterward would be the same one I gave the hotel room that night. The look of someone watching their world crack in half. I waited until it was just the two of us. No music. No TV. No mom hovering. I told her I had something serious to talk about. She rolled her eyes at first, joking. "Is this a birds and bees thing? Because you're a little late." I didn't laugh. I pulled out the DNA report and set it on her desk. She barely looked at it. "What is this?" she asked. I sat across from her, heart hammering in my chest, and set it straight. "It's a sibling test. You and I, We're only half related. She blinked, frowned. Wait, what? I repeated it. We have the same mom, but not the same dad. She stared at me like I'd just made up a new language. At first, I thought she didn't understand. But then I saw it hit her, all at once. Her mouth opened like she was going to say something, but nothing came out. And then the panic set in. No, that's not right. Dad's my dad. He was there when I was born. He raised me. That can't be right. I told her about the deployment dates, the birth certificate, the clinic, the way everything lined up. I told her I didn't want to believe it either, that I hoped the test would say we were full siblings, and I just embarrassed myself. She sat there, completely still. No tears, no screaming, just still. After a while, she asked the question I'd been dreading. Does Dad know? I told her, not yet. She nodded. Then, quietly, almost too quietly, she said, don't tell him. That caught me off guard. Wait, what? You think he shouldn't know? She looked up at me, and her eyes were full of something I didn't expect. Not fear, not shame, anger. At me. You had no right to go behind everyone's back and dig this stuff up. I didn't ask for this. He didn't ask for this. You think you're doing some kind of justice crusade, but all you're doing is tearing our family apart. I was stunned. I'd braced for sadness, even denial, but I didn't expect her to defend Mom. So I told her about Ray, about the hotel, the messages, the recording, the way Mom admitted it without even flinching. And that only made it worse. You've been spying on her? Recording her? What are you, paranoid? You're acting like this is some Netflix documentary, and we're all just characters in your little revenge movie. That hurt more than I expected, because I wasn't doing this for drama. I was doing it because I couldn't stand the idea of my dad living in a lie. A man who'd given everything for us, who worked overtime for school trips, who built our backyard swing set from scratch, who still carried a folded photo of us in his wallet that looked like it was from another lifetime. She stood up, shook her head, and said, You tell Dad, and you'll break him. Not Mom. Him. You'll destroy the one good person in this family. And then she walked out. I didn't sleep that night. Not because of what she said, but because deep down, I understood it. She was trying to protect the version of life she still believed in. The one where Dad was Dad, and Mom was just a little selfish sometimes, and everything else could be chalked up to human flaws. But that wasn't the life we had. That was a script Mom had written, and it had been playing for nearly 2 decades. I waited until the weekend. I waited until Mom took my sister shopping for some event, and Dad was home alone, watching the same woodworking YouTube videos he always did when he had the house to himself. And I sat down across from him at the kitchen table. I told him everything. I told him I got a text from Mom meant for someone else. I told him I went to the hotel. I told him about Ray, the DNA test, the recording, the clinic, all of it. I didn't leave anything out. He didn't interrupt once, didn't flinch, just stared at the table like it was telling him the story instead of me. When I finished, he sat back and sighed through his nose, like a balloon letting out air, slowly. He said, I think I always knew. That caught me by surprise. I asked him what he meant. He said, Your mother and I, we haven't been in love for a long time. I told myself I stayed for the kids. But maybe I stayed because I didn't want to admit she never chose me to begin with. I asked him what he wanted to do. He didn't answer right away, just looked toward the hallway, like he was watching 20 years of his life replay behind the walls. Then he stood up and said, I'm going to pack a bag. He didn't yell, didn't storm out. He packed a small duffel, took some toiletries, his old flannel jacket, a pair of boots, the wallet photo. Then he hugged me, long tight. Thank you, he said. And then he left. Not forever, just for now. But it was the first real step anyone had taken toward telling the truth. When Mom came back and saw his stuff gone, she panicked, asked where he was, called his phone, texted him a dozen times. I told her he knew everything. She slapped me, right across the face, said I ruined everything, said, You don't even understand what you've done. And I said, No, you don't. It's wild how fast everything can fall apart when a lie finally runs out of places to hide. 3 days. That's all it took. 3 days after my dad walked out, my mom's perfect little world, the one she controlled for almost 2 decades, was in pieces. And this time, she didn't get to narrate it. She didn't get to spin it into something graceful or noble or complicated. No, she got silence. From all of us. After she slapped me, I didn't say a word. I just stood there, staring at her like she was a stranger who'd broken into our house and decided to wear my mom's face. She tried to keep the control. First came the yelling, telling me I didn't understand, that I was ungrateful, that I was turning my sister against her. Then came the begging. She cried on the kitchen floor, full-on sobbing, saying how hard it had been for her, how lonely she felt, how Dad stopped paying attention years ago. She said, "Ray, listen to me. Your father didn't." I asked her if that justified 20 years of lying. She didn't answer, just curled into herself, repeating, "I didn't mean for this to happen," like it was a mantra. But that's the thing. She did mean for it to happen. Maybe not the outcome, but every step leading to it was a choice she made. And now that the lights were on and the audience was watching, she didn't know how to stop performing. My sister didn't talk to me for 2 days. We passed each other in the hallway like ghosts, both too angry and too sad to figure out what the hell to say. But then one night, around 1 a.m., she knocked on my door. She looked wrecked, eyes puffy, hoodie pulled over her head like she was trying to hide from the truth. She asked if I had the recording. I nodded. We sat on my bed and listened to it in silence. She cried the whole way through. When it ended, she didn't say anything. She just pulled her legs up and sat there, shaking. I asked if she wanted to talk. She said, "I don't think I'm ready to hate her yet, but I can't love her the same way either." That hit harder than I expected, because it wasn't dramatic. It wasn't revenge. It was real, quiet grief for a version of Mom that never existed. She asked if Dad knew the full story. I told her yes. I also told her he didn't blame her, that he loved her, no matter what. And that broke her worse than anything else. Because deep down, she knew what it meant. He loved her more than Mom ever loved him. Dad didn't stay away for long. He got an apartment a few towns over. Nothing big, just a quiet place. He called us when he was settled and said we could come by whenever we wanted. I moved in the next week. My sister moved in 2 weeks later. And Mom, she stayed in that house alone. She tried to play the victim, of course. She texted us both paragraphs. Long, dramatic ones filled with things like, "You've both abandoned me," and "I made one mistake, and you're letting him poison you against me." I didn't respond. My sister did once. Just one message. "You didn't make one mistake. You lived a lie and made us actors in your play." We just stopped reading the script. Mom stopped texting after that, at least for a while. I figured that would be it, that she'd slink off and rebuild her life with Ray, the man she risked everything for. But that didn't happen, because, funny enough, Ray didn't answer her calls. She tried to reach him, a lot. Called him the night Dad moved out. Then the next day, and the next. I checked the phone records again out of morbid curiosity. Over 20 missed calls in 4 days. No answer. Turns out, Ray wasn't interested in taking care of the mess he helped make. His wife found out too. Somehow. I still don't know how, and I don't care. Word got to her. Maybe someone else saw them. Maybe she read the signs the way I did. Maybe she just knew. All I know is, Ray's wife kicked him out and changed the locks. So now Mom was truly alone. She sent me one last message. A long one. "You think you did the right thing, but all you did was destroy a family." One message. That's all it took. One wrong text. "You've ruined everything." I stared at it for a long time. Then I wrote back. "No, Mom. That text didn't destroy the family. You just finally sent it to someone who wasn't too blind to read it." She didn't reply, and I think that's when it finally hit her. The truth didn't ruin our family. Her lies did. These days, things are quiet. Dad's apartment is peaceful. He cooks more, smiles more, talks like he's remembering who he is again. My sister's in therapy. So am I. We're not whole yet, but we're real now. And that's a start. As for Mom, I don't know. I don't ask. And I don't really want to know. Because if she ever figures out what love actually means, she'll understand that we didn't walk away to hurt her. We walked away because we finally learned what it feels like to be honest. Thanks for reading. If you're going through something like this, trust your gut. And maybe, just maybe, check who your messages are going to. And that's the story. If you're still here, that means you're one of us. So go ahead, hit that subscribe button. I drop new chaos every single day. And trust me, tomorrow's story, it's even worse than this one.